or it's just for a few? You can go ahead and unmute, advocate.
Yes, thank you. Uh, yeah, due to the constraints of time, I'll just be brief. But basically, I think one of the key aspects that emerge from an analysis of the role of the international community is the issue of solidarity. We have seen in the past that where our citizens in Zimbabwe have been brutalized. We have seen solidarity from other nations, and at the same time, we have also seen the opposite of solidarity. We have seen um, other parts of the international community siding with the oppressor here in Zimbabwe. We can give a good example of China, which we know very well to be very closely associated with the oppressive ZANU-PF government. We know for a fact that China has been playing a very major role in propping up the ZANU-PF government. On the other side, those who are seeking change, those who are on the progressive side, we have also seen a few progressive nations also coming in to offer solidarity to us, but it is not as pronounced as it should be. If we are to zero in on the SADC region, you find that there was a time when Botswana, during the time of Ian Seretse-Khama, the former president of Botswana, when he was in power, he spoke out a lot in SADC over the issue of Zimbabwe, and he offered a lot of solidarity. He also offered political asylum to victims of the violence and repression in Zimbabwe. And we have seen, however, that ever since the change of power in Botswana, with the coming in of the new president Masisi, we've seen a shift in policy by the current Botswana government, where it is now more or less showing itself to be sympathetic to ZANU-PF. So I would say, in my view, that whilst the role of the international community is important, this is obviously subject to shifting sands. A change of government, like we saw in Botswana, can result in a change of policy. Like they say in politics, there are no friends or permanent enemies. Whilst Botswana was giving us solidarity at some point, you will find that now the new president has changed policy and is now siding with the oppressive regime in Zimbabwe. So I think, in my view, whilst the international community is important, we should rather be more inward looking as a people. Ultimately, the solution will have to come from us as the citizens, as the Zimbabwean people. It is not advisable to outsource to the international community. The only solution will have to come from the people of Zimbabwe, of course, with help from the international community where possible. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it is us, the citizens, who must take the lead. It is us, the citizens, who must make sure that we organize ourselves. It is the citizens who must make sure that they are politically conscious, because at the end of the day, if we are to take power in a peaceful way, which is through elections, then it is through the process of mobilizing the people to vote, and mobilizing the people to protect their vote. That is critically important. So, from my perspective, I believe that the international community is important, and more alliances should be built. I mean, the signals which are coming from Zambia are quite encouraging. We have seen that the UNPD in Zambia, which recently won elections, has been showing a lot of solidarity with the movement, the progressive movement in Zimbabwe, and you then see you obviously have seen the response from the state media, in particular the Herald, which has now gone on an overdrive to to attack the UPND government in Zambia. Only a few days ago, they've been publishing a lot of articles. You have seen the tweets by George Jaramba attacking Zambians, and the reason for that is the reason why the Zambians are being attacked is because of the solidarity that they are offering to the progressive movement in Zimbabwe. So I think at the end of the day, we need to build more alliances there.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, definitely. Thank you for that. But I want you to address one more thing, which is there's this belief in Zimbabweans that the international community is going to come to their rescue, but some have seemed disappointed because some wonder why the international community still works with the regime in Harare, despite the fact that it is illegitimate. And many people have raised concerns about the legitimacy of the Zimbabwean government. Yet the international community sometimes doesn't appear to be doing anything about it. What's your take on that?
Well, maybe if you can maybe just come again on the last part.
Yes, like the regime in Harare, from the standpoint of the opposition and from the results and everything, is illegitimate. And because it is illegitimate, people would have expected, or citizens would have expected, that maybe the international community would not cooperate with ZANU-PF. Yet we see that the international community actually sometimes cooperates with the ZANU-PF, despite it being illegitimate. So that's where I want you to comment, so that people can hear why is it that you work with a government that is clearly illegitimate, like what happens in the world. There are some these authoritarian regimes. You see the international community going to work with them and not with the democratic forces like the CCC, something like that. I don't know if you have understood the question.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Basically, I think it boils down to economic interests. You must understand that even these foreign governments, they also have their own economic interests in Zimbabwe. We must remember that Zimbabwe is a resource-rich country. It's a country which is blessed with so many natural resources. Um, Basically, Zimbabwe is a net importer of things like fuel. So basically, Zimbabwe is a country which offers, lucrative economic returns to these big players. Because, for example, if you look at the fact that we import more than $1 billion worth of fuel every year, so these international players, these international governments giving recognition to ZANU-PF, obviously they will be looking at their own economic interests, trying to secure contracts with the Zimbabwean government in areas like fuel, for example, like I've mentioned. You will see also in issues like diamonds and platinum and all the other minerals. So it's linked to the resources of the country. It's linked to the corruption and the plunder of our resources. So you would find that some of these governments are prepared to turn a blind eye to to the abuses and reap the economic benefit of cooperating with ZANU-PF.
Thank you so much for that. I encourage our lawyers, our political scientists, and all the other professionals here present to request the mic so that you can come and start speaking and start asking questions and start contributing. We will go to Ndabaseswe Viki. Can you contribute?
Thank you. Hello, citizens. May I take this opportunity to ask from Advocate Kutai? We've seen the role of international community in the past, that they play a major role, particularly in places where there is political contestation. Isn't it within the legal framework that since our elections are mostly contested, the outcome is always contested, isn't it possible to have international community roped in to conduct our elections, while least the parties become participants, players in that process, to eliminate a situation where ZANU-PF will be calling the shots, say in the appointment of the ZEC and all other arms of government that assist it in retaining power?
Yeah, that's a good question. But you, our Zimbabwean constitution states clearly that Zimbabwe is what they would call a sovereign country. You know what ZANU-PF always likes to say, that they are a sovereign. We are a sovereign country, and we cannot outsource our internal processes to the international community. So it will be extremely difficult for something like that to happen unless there is a direct invasion of the country. Because as things stand, I do not see how that can possibly happen in Zimbabwe. For starters, the question would be which international body would then be intervening, and to what extent can it intervene? You saw that in 2008, the Zimbabwean situation was referred to the United Nations Security Council, where a resolution was being promoted that there be some intervention because of the security situation that was obtaining in the country. And unfortunately, because of the structure of the Security Council of the United Nations, China and Russia vetoed that resolution. So the United Nations literally is out because of the cooperation between ZANU-PF and China and Russia. So we are unlikely to get any assistance from there, because China and Russia will most likely veto any resolution to intervene. And we have also seen SADC's intervention. SADC's intervention really ends with making recommendations to the local bodies like ZEC, and giving mere guidelines. We have not seen SADC speak with a strong voice. In as much as we would want that to happen, it is quite rare, and it is unlikely to happen that SADC would speak with one voice with respect to Zimbabwe, which is why I was saying from the initial start that ultimately it's us, the citizens, who are going to have to initiate the process for change in Zimbabwe. Whilst the international community can give us solidarity, it will be extremely difficult for them to actually then intervene, especially because there's divergent views or can I say divided opinion on Zimbabwe, especially within the international community. Some countries feel there's a need for intervention. Some countries feel there's no need for intervention. Others opt for quiet diplomacy. So it's quite difficult. And for us as Zimbabweans to place our hope on that, I think we will be backing up the wrong tree. What we would rather do is organize ourselves first and then take whatever assistance we can.
Thank you so much. We'll go to Jeff Mkotwa. Can you go ahead, Jefta?
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. I just have a few observations. The first one is, when we speak of international community, I believe we make one mistake that we think it's an institution like a certain a superpower is the international community. We forget that the Zimbabweans that are in the international world becomes the international community that have the power, that have the leverage and the influence in some of the institutions that we'll be thinking about. And we are like we slightly avoid them and we put them in the diaspora, but they are in an international community. I think that's one thing. And then the second thing is that we have an assumption that SADC, the formation of SADC, was never based in political correction, but in political protection and perpetuation of the comradeship. So there is no way in the SADC country that any country, according to the statutes of SADC, that it will interfere in internal affairs because of the sovereignty. SADC only comes in to harmonize, to standardize which countries have a choice to or not to. So that's one thing that we should understand that. And when we approach the international community that we have defined as the superpowers, we talk of Britain, we talk of US. Remember also that those superpowers or the international community, at any given time within a context, they have their special interest in a country. If it is not of their special interest, no matter what we do, they will never even listen to Zimbabwe. One thing for sure, that Zimbabwe doesn't have oil, so there is not an interested party. They are not interested. So what is it that we can create as international Zimbabweans and also local Zimbabweans and in our political platform to ensure that there is an attraction towards what they may consider an important agenda. So those are just the observations that I've made. I could say, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jefta, for that brilliant contribution. And can you stay on and help us take some questions as well? From yourself, let's go to Denford. Denford, can you go ahead? Denford, Jory. Okay, if you can't speak, let's go to Lorraine.
Good evening, everyone. My question is about the diaspora vote. You know, it's something that has not stopped aching me, you know, and lately I've had the commissioner of SEC, Ms. Chigumba, say that, you know, I don't know whether it's a stance by tradition or by policy or by constitution, that they only recognize that a person has to go back and vote in the constituency that have been registered in. She gave an example that if somebody is visiting Mutare and they are registered in Kuwadzana, when it comes to voting time, they've got to go back. Okay, when asked whether that would be applied to the diaspora vote, she said the same. I still refuse to just accept that without arguing it out. So my question to the honorable advocates is, do we have any clause within the the law that we can lodge our argument towards the diaspora vote? I still believe it's possible because when you look at the diplomats and the embassies, they're still casting their votes. We are still receiving postal votes. When it comes to the general population in the diaspora, why is this not possible? And my request, maybe not to the lawyers, but maybe to the citizens, is can we not come up with some, something robust and tangible in order to see that this is enforced? For example, just like we are engaging the lawyers, we can also engage, ZEC, maybe bring in our Mr. Ian Makone, who's responsible for elections and so forth, to a platform like this and maybe start to map a way forward. But then going back to the lawyers, I would like you to advise us, the legal lines, the legal lines of arguments that we can lodge towards our case. We simply don't want to just let it lie and let it go just like that. We can do something, and we believe with your advice, we can engage on on this, and we can actually bring ZEC and the government to account. They might cite resources and so forth, but we have always been meeting the country halfway or even more economically. Why can't we maybe come to a drawing table and say, what are the resources that you say are impossible? Maybe it's even more possible this side, because the systems are running well, the rule of law is intact. So that is my question.
Jefta, are you able to respond to that? Okay, so we'll wait. Our advocate Mtetwa, who is now co-host, will be able to speak soon. He will be taking notes and taking questions. So he will be able to answer some of those questions. Meanwhile, he's still engaged, but he's now here. So from Lorraine, we'll go to Denford. Denford, can you speak now?
Yes, thank you very much, host. I had some problems with my network here. I would want to also engage listeners and fellow colleagues on this important topic of the role of the international community in Zimbabwean politics. And I would want to also highlight an issue to do with, I think I will have to concentrate much about our regional bodies as a form of a part of the international community, in particular our African Union and the SADC. I recall the time when there was former President Thabo Mbeki as a representative of the mediation between Zimbabwe, between the then President Robert Mugabe and also the late Morgan Tsvangirai. Let me say ZANU-PF and MDC. It seems our regional bodies, they are not so much sincere when they are deliberating on issues to do with the Zimbabwean politics. Because I remember how it was taken by SADC, and in particular by the then President Thabo Mbeki, to say from the onset, as he touched on the Harare International Airport, him being questioned by the journalist, in as much as he would say the problems of Zimbabwe can be solved by Zimbabweans. But his statements, they actually reflected that he was not, he was a partisan mediator in which he could speak vile about Morgan Tsvangirai and highlighting, and could not even acknowledge that there was violence. He could not even.
It seems as if we've lost Denford. Advocate Masie, if you're a speaker now, you can unmute. If you are using a different account, I understand that you are here. Can you come? And also, Advocate Mandevere, can you try also to request the mic and come and help us? Okay. So from there, from Denford, let's go to, let me see, kapariao.com. Can you try?
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Kapariao.
So basically, I am from Afghanistan. If you feel that I am relevant in this space, I can speak. Otherwise, I can leave.
No, you can speak. You can speak. You are relevant as long as you are speaking to the topic, the role of the international communities in politics.
Hello?
You can go ahead and speak.
Can you hear me?
Feel free to speak. Yes, we can hear you. Feel free to speak.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you so much. So you are talking about the role of international community in the politics of Zimbabwe. I'm here to share with you the experience of the role of the international community that they played in Afghanistan. And it was a very, very ineffective and bad rule. For the last 20 years, they were in Afghanistan. They were manipulating the electoral processes, every kind of process. They made a mockery of elections, mockery of democracy, mockery of human rights, mockery of women's rights. And one of the friends mentioned that when there is problem, they will leave you in the halfway. And this is exactly what happened in Afghanistan. Because of the shifting geopolitical realities in the Indo-Pacific and in the Ukraine, they left Afghanistan and effectively gifted Afghanistan to a terrorist group like the Taliban, who are nothing but the proxy of our neighbor Pakistan. So if you are expecting the international community to play a positive role in Zimbabwe, you would be oversimplifying it. So please, this is the internal struggle for the Zimbabwean people to make a good. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Can
you.
you hear
Go
me?
ahead. We are listening.
Yeah.
Yes,
Sorry,
I
have internet problem. All I was saying is that this is only for the people of Zimbabwe to make a good state, a peaceful country, a prosperous society, and a prosperous nation. International community will not do it. The moral of my study from Afghanistan is that they are just here in countries like Afghanistan, like Zimbabwe, like many of.
important points there from Kabariao, who has dropped off because of internet problems. It is Afghanistan's largest independent news agency. So I believe that should be a journalist right there. So thank you so much, Kabariao, for that talk. From there, we'll go to another international lawyer, Mr. Elliot Pepe. Can you go ahead and talk?
Thank you, host. Sorry if I can make a correction. I'm not an international lawyer. but I'm a diplomat and an academic.
Okay, thank you for the correction. Go ahead.
Yeah. So my contribution will be based on the role of international community in election monitoring. If I can pick that as part of the engagement, I think it is very important for the CC, the citizen, our current political party, to also make sure that we make the necessary network globally. It is very important that we have got make it very clear that for the election is about to be free and fair, we need the international community as observers. And here we are not limitation within the African Union, the SADC, which has been the case in the past elections, but we are talking about all stakeholders in the electoral process globally, so that we can safeguard the vote, and also to make sure that any intention of a violent process by any political party is documented, and that process leads to a legitimate electoral process. So, in terms of observers, I've got also issues with our brothers and sisters within the African Union, within SADC region, with the previous monitoring of elections that have happened in Zimbabwe by those bodies have been a rubber stamping of electoral fraud. And also the rush into confirmation of a fraudulent electoral process, which eventually does not benefit both in terms of Zimbabweans, the region, and the democratic space within Zimbabwe. So that's an area that I want to open up to people who are listening, to see how is CCC can engage or make sure that we get our international friends on board as we prepare for the 2023 elections for the purpose of electoral monitoring. Thank you. Ala, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Mr. Febe.
Lamek, can you speak now? Lamek? Okay, it seems like Lamek can't speak. Sly Saidi, can you hear us? Can you unmute and speak?
Hi, yes, I can speak. I think the people who've talked, they've made very important sort of points about the international sort of role. And I think this is something as well that, I hope you guys or the legal team will look into that. I actually really just want to talk about, even if we are doing the whole sort of international or diasporans or whatever, that there's still a lot of loopholes that are happening. And like somebody just pulled me through into that Blue board, yeah, and people were asking questions, like, oh, how can I, if I don't have my ID, if I'm not there, where can I be? Where can I register because I want to vote? So we have some of these small problems, which actually, if it's one person asking, then there's 50 people behind that question. So before we talk about the whole international thing, I think we need to also, I'm just making it so somebody can pick it up, that they can actually look into those grassroots things in Bulawayo. Bulawayo is where there's an issue. People feel disconnected. What I read from everything, all the comments and whatever, people are feeling disconnected. How can we make the people in Bulawayo feel connected to CCC? And this is very important because right now I feel like and maybe because I'm in a privileged position, that if people are still talking about tribalism, then we still have a big problem, right? Because everybody's starving, everybody's suffering, and we want solutions. But this is what is happening in Bulawayo. So there needs to be a new strategy to engage people in Bulawayo. That's one part. Another thing I wanted to say, if we engage the international community, you can also do it. Like I saw people going and burning Tandiwe when she was making people aware, using her platform to make people aware about the situation in Zimbabwe. And people were like, "Yeah, you're British," and maybe that's coming from the ZANU PF. I don't know, but we can use people like this. And I think people like Hopewell or whoever, they all have these like international sort of people that they know that can actually help to amplify voices, because the more, if you want to get people looking and talking, it doesn't necessarily mean a government has to do. We all here, when something goes wrong in Palestine, we're all putting up flags about Palestine. In Europe, for example, I know that. So this is what we need to do. That's how we amplify the yellow. I see it's doing well, but there are some places where we could do better. But we could also do better by engaging with people that have got large platforms. So if we find another Tandiwe or another person who's got a big following, these kind of famous people, then the movement goes and people will watch. The world will watch what is going on. It's difficult to steal an election when the world is watching.
Thank you so much, Slice ID. Very important points. I guess the leadership which is here, including ourselves, we are taking note of that. A recording will be available, so definitely we'll make sure that what you have said has been listened to. It's always good to do better and to make sure that everyone is connected and feels connected. Thank you so much. From there, let's go to Salani, then Taona.
Thank you so much, host and co-host. I'd like to appreciate all the speakers and the listeners as well. I just wanted to really agree with what Sly just mentioned just now, to say that international community, a lot of the times we need to also work alongside our famous people, whether it's Hopewell, whether it's Tandy Newton, whoever it is, and just retweet or support them. Because I mean, I was even troubled when I saw a message from her saying that she was actually apologizing to Zimbabwean people to say whether she had offended someone. And that really touched me. And I'm thinking to myself, seriously, why do you have to apologize for fighting for your heritage or for your country? And I really applaud her for standing up in her capacity. Because remember, sometimes when you put those statements and you're an actress, you never know how the British, whatever academy or whatever they do, will respond to that. That can actually ruin her career, but she was strong enough to stand with us. And I would call on Zimbabweans on this platform to go there, give her support as well. That's how you help people to know that we're with them, because the moment you don't support people like that who are prominent or who are famous, they will not speak next time. And that's not what we want. Going back to what the role of the international community in Zimbabwean politics. Lorraine mentioned a very important thing about a diaspora vote, and I want to echo that sentiment as well. We want to understand where we stand with that. When we look at the amount of contribution that comes from the diaspora, we've got finances and donations that are made from people who are in the diaspora, who are supporting the cause. And it's only fair and right for us to also find ways in which we allow them to have a voice when it comes to voting as well. They don't necessarily have to go to Zimbabwe Zimbabwe in order to do that. And we know that ZANU-PF will not allow such a thing because they know that the moment the diaspora has got a voice when it comes to elections, that means basically they're going to be out of power. And that's what they don't want. But at the same time, we need to go to the courts. We need to see that. We want visible proof from CCC itself to show that they're also fighting for us. Because when it comes to donations, diaspora are donating. We are rallying people up every single time we have spaces where we say to people, donate, donate, donate. We've got by-elections coming up. We've got an election coming up in 2023. And all these things are coming from diaspora people who are supporting the cause. So really, really, we really have to look at ways in which lawyers can assist us to have a case. Even if you need money to do that, I'm sure a lot of people on this platform will be happy to support such a cause, knowing that it'll give them a voice because their vote counts, because their voice matters as well. I just wanted to emphasize on that. And the next thing I wanted to say, when we look at the international community, we know already that Idi Mnangagwa is one of the people who have been targeted when it comes to sanctions. As much as they want to argue and say that the sanctions are there against the people, we know that these are targeted. So if they're targeted against someone like Idi Mnangagwa, which stops him from traveling to the USA, that means that us as citizens who are in the USA, who are in the UK, we are in a position to then speak to these people because we are CCC members, you know, we're supporting the cause. And what I'm saying here is that Zimbabwe is not an island. We need people from outside to work with us. Yes, they will argue that, oh, you're Western sponsored, what rubbish, whatever they want to do with their propaganda. But we know that that's not what we're doing it for. What CCC needs is obviously that international relationships outside of Zimbabwe from different countries, and people in the diaspora are in a position to build those type of relationships. So what I'm asking today is let's have communication between the leadership in Zimbabwe and the leadership outside in westernized countries, where we can start to get these discussions going, and we can start to promote a situation whereby by the time we win the elections, we'll be in a position to work with international governments and better our country. That's all I'll contribute for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Salani. From Salani, let's go to Taona.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Would you allow me to come in without invitation, just for a few comments? Would you allow me to?
So Taona, can you just wait so that Jefta can help us respond to some of the questions? Go ahead, Jefta.
No, thank you very much. First thing that I wanted just to speak about what was said about the international community when it indulged itself into a national politics. We know and we have a good history of all the countries where the international community has come in either by force or military rule or invasion, that it has destroyed the locals. It has destroyed the local economy. I'll take an example of Afghanistan. Afghanistan is now in rambles. We take off Libya, we talk of all that, because what we need to understand is that when they come in, what is their purpose? Is really their purpose and mandate democracy, or is something else beyond that? But they take advantage of the situation that we are in. So those are the things. I then agree with the last speaker, the instant speaker, who was talking about how can we as political parties or political leaders or the main opposition try to sell the agenda, and that agenda should be controlled by the locals. Whatever the international comes in with, it should be controlled by international. However, when you look of targeted sanctions, they are targeted on personal capacities. But when the one person where sanctions are against goes for international mandates, like the UN mandates, he or she is allowed into that particular country to do that business. So the sanctions then, it becomes very difficult because they will not want to visit where the country, they are not so comfortable. There are other places that they can go. So what I'm trying to say with all this is we need to have ourselves organized, one. Two, we need to have the same thing that we had in 2000, where we were not looking at where we're not ring fencing our membership or our ideology, but we spread our ideology to all other and open our arms to even people that of diverse opinion. But if we only believe in a group, a certain group, to engage the international, it will be very difficult. And the last contribution is on the diaspora voting. Given the situation and our experience with Zimbabwe, when they can steal elections local, what do you expect with postal voting? Do you think we have enough manpower ourselves as different political parties to send agencies in all those embassies? Would our names not be used against us when you vote for MDC or CC? Would it not be in transit? Would it not be turned to be ED? And we have no proof of verification methods for that. So I as much as I agree, but in this current situation, diaspora voting outside, we need to be very careful what we are advocating for. We might be giving votes to the current regime because it controls the postage. That's all, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jefta. Advocate Kenneth Masie is now here. So what we'll do is we'll go to Taona. After Taona, we'll go to Shrela Loom. Then after that, we go to Advocate Masie's presentation. Taona, try to make it 2 minutes. Then Shrela Loom, 2 minutes. So go ahead, Taona.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. We are living in 2022. We are living in a highly globalized, interlinked, interconnected global village where the doctrine of transnationalism, internationalism, transcontinentalism, and bilateralism and multilateralism is the order of the day. So the role of international community in the socio-economic, political, and cultural polities of Zimbabwe is as old as the formation of the modern day state of Zimbabwe. It dates back to the liberation struggle, to the anti-colonial movement. The international community has been very much vested in the Zimbabwean politics since the era and the days of the liberation struggle. You know, if you look at the liberation movement themselves, ZANU-PF and its military wing, Sanla, PF-ZAPU and its military wing, ZIPRA, they were all supported by international community. ZANLA and ZANU-PF, they were given diplomatic and military support by the Chinese. The PF-ZAPU and the ZIPRA were given diplomatic and military support by the Soviet Union. It was not only the communist bloc which support the liberation movement, but also progressive liberal Western organizations in Western Europe. There's a very instructive archival footages of the late General Tongogara saying that some of the support, material and resources support they are getting towards the liberation struggle is actually coming from progressive organizations in Sweden, in America, and so forth. And you could see that even the American government, the British government was also invested in the Rhodesian question of Zimbabwe. The American Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger, tried to negotiate the Rhodesian question in 1976 during the Geneva Conference, and it collapsed. And if we look at the 1979 Lancaster House Conference, the US ambassador to the UN, Andrew Young, was much invested in the Rhodesian question, in the settling of the Zimbabwean question. The president of the United States at that time, Jimmy Carter, was very much invested in the question of settling the Rhodesian question as well. and also the Tory government of Thatcher and so forth. So now let's fast forward to the present day era. So what I'm saying here, for the international community to be involved, to take a keen interest in the political and the socio-economic struggles of Zimbabwe, it is the locals, it is the Zimbabweans themselves. We have to make a strong case, a strong domestic case for the international community to come and support. Why is it that the Chinese, the Soviets, even the British government, the American government, the progressive organization in Western Europe came in to support the liberation movement? Because they made a strong, convincing case against the racist, fascist regime of Ian Smith. And then the international community realized, yes, the indigenous people of Rhodesia, they have a genuine, grievances. So we need to come on board and support them. I'll come to 2007, 2008. Why did the SADC and African Union came on board? They came on board because back then, the MDC under the stewardship of Morgan Tsvangirai, they made a very strong case here that the international community need to come on board and to support the progressive movements in Zimbabwe. So my question, so the bottom of the matter is that the Zimbabweans themselves, in as much as we live in a highly globalized and interconnected world. We cannot outsource the democratic struggle, the human rights struggle, the socio-economic struggle to the international community. The international community will come on board and support it. We'll take you back to 2017. International community was involved in the birth of the coup. The coup was underwritten by the Chinese. The coup had the tacit blessing of the UK government. We know that the UK ambassador to Zimbabwe, Katrina Lang, with a vested interest in the top lane of Robert Mugabe. So, and also what we should not just limit ourselves to when we look at international communities, well, there are non-state actors which play a significant role in the democratic struggles, isn't it? So when you look here, Transparent International is an international anti-corruption organization. Well, it's involved in fighting for the scourge of corruption in Zimbabwe. We have the Human Rights Watch. May Dewa Mavinga rest in peace. But it was also involved in the social, economic, and human rights struggles of Zimbabwe. We've got Amnesty International and so forth. So the bottom of the matter is that, yes, international community can play both a progressive and a constructive role, but can also as well play a destructive and destabilizing role. Of course, in Zimbabwe, we haven't had such situations, but if you look at maybe the countries like Libya, for instance, and Afghanistan, for instance, but well, yes, I think what is needed is that for progressive, political movements, for example, with the new kid on the block, the CCC needs to have international solidarity with international solidarity, international connections with other progressive movements. I've seen like Chamisa, he was in Tanzania, establishing what we call regional linkages with other progressive opposition movement within the region. That's a very good point. I saw them, they were invited at the inauguration of Hichilema, which was a very good point in terms of international solidarity. At the same time as well, even though there's a reservations and questions surrounding SADC and African Union, but what is needed is that all these progressive opposition movement, they also need to engage and to make their strong case within the SADC region, within the African Union region. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Advocate Taona there. It was good to hear from you as a human rights and international development lawyer. That those were powerful presentations. We then go to Advocate Masie. Advocate Masie, can you go ahead and make your presentation? Advocate Kenneth Masie, can you unmute and speak? Okay, whilst we are waiting for Advocate Masie, Priscilla, can you go ahead?
Thank you, host. Hello, everybody. Mine is a question. Really, I struggle with the issue of accountability when it comes to the Zimbabwean government. What can you suggest that us, as Zimbabweans in the international community, can do to hold this government to account, given the fact that we send a lot of money in Zimbabwe, we invest a lot. We really need them to be able to account on certain things, and for me, the diaspora is one big issue as well. Just like how my other colleagues here have said, how do we bring Zimbabwe up to speed to catch up with things like this, where we could actually bring Makaita Sanat, Priscilla Chigumba on these platforms so that we can ask them questions, so that we can talk to them and they can hear us and our concerns, because clearly there is a gap, in terms of communication and in terms of accountability. They think they can get away. Well, they have been getting away with quite a lot simply because we are not getting through to them because of this communication barrier. What can we do? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Advocate Marcia, if you can unmute, you can start by answering that question.
Yes, thank you very much for bringing me here. Quite unfortunate that there was some other commitment that I had, but yes, so clearly it's very important to hold leaders and to hold institutions like ZAC to account, and to also ask those questions. And it is actually a duty of the citizen to do that. And it's also the duty of the government to those institutions to be transparent and independent, and make sure that when they are dealing with issues such as elections, it is imperative that these should be done in a transparent manner, and and also make sure that the laws that are prevailing domestically are those that nurture the environment of a free and fair society which can question its leaders. But unfortunately, that is not the case in Zimbabwe. It's a case where the government has clearly reneged from its duties locally, constitutionally, regionally, and also internationally, and it's quite a sad scenario. And as you may know, Zimbabwe right now has a constitution that was put in place like in 2018, and this constitution has been there for a while, but it talks.
Hello, viewers and listeners. How are you? Hope I find you well. So we are going to have another program to wish our President Nelson Chamisa the happy birthday. We are going to invite you for WhatsApp and WhatsApp messages, call-ins, and audios. We are going to play your audios. We are going to have your calls on WhatsApp as people will be listening to your voices as you wish, as you send your birthday messages to President Nelson Chamisa. So we are going to stop this live right now. Then we open another live in the next 2-3 minutes. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for tuning in. Bye-bye.